That was awesome. Real feel-good win, real feel-good few days. You don't think, no, he wouldn't. What? You don't think producer Drew would like mess with this video because he's an Avalanche fan? Dude, just because he's an Avalanche fan and he went to the game tonight and he's got to listen to a Leaf fan talk about this game doesn't mean he's gonna mess with the video. Right?
Let's go!
Victory, Puppy Ziggy! Nate Dog! More like good dog. Let's go. I can't believe you got that one. We're on fire. Well, okay. It was my fault. I shouldn't have even said it. Yeah. Usually I do the fist pump right away. I'm not gonna. We're gonna tease. We're gonna build up to it because reporter Jesse Blake of SDPN was at this game and he spoke to Steven Lorentz. Sorry, that is game-winning goal scorer, Steven Lorentz. And here's what he had to say. It's surreal every game, and I take pride in pulling that jersey over every single game. Scoring a goal like tonight, you think about being a little kid and jumping in the glass. I love doing what I do, and that is Steven Lorentz on Playing for the Leafs after growing up a Leafs fan. Unbelievable! Off the charts! Volcanic levels of passion! 2-1 over the Colorado Avalanche! Hey! Any of you early birds listen to the Steve Dangle podcast? That's that podcast that I do where I'm really smart at what I do. What did I say? Listen. Nathan MacKinnon is unreal. We know that. Auston Matthews is unreal. We know that. And those two hang around in a lot of the same conversations. And one thing I've said more than once over the past few seasons is Matthews-MacKinnon head-to-head has been in MacKinnon's favor recently. And that win against Calgary was huge. Matthews getting a couple goals there, huge. But this one, I need to see Matthews outduel MacKinnon, and they're gonna go head to head all night. I said that. Not just Matthews, Marner, Nyes, that whole line is going up against the Avalanche's best. And it wasn't exactly a Mona Lisa out there. It didn't always go according to plan. The Avalanche got a lot more shot attempts. They got a lot more shots on goal. But the Leafs held tight and helped Joseph Woll have one of his best games ever. Dude, remember when Joseph Woll was bad for like a week and everyone was like, oh, Chad, is he cooked? Like you didn't watch the entire rest of his career. Say you're sorry. Say you're sorry to Joseph. He plays the piano very well. How dare you? It's true. Look it up. There's nothing he can't do. Absolutely nothing. First period of this game. Not as eventful as the rest of it. There were obviously no goals. Lehkonen and Nyes exchanged pleasantries. Nyes got him in the back of the head with a high stick, which you're not allowed to do. Lehkonen elbowed him in the face, which you're not allowed to do. And this was one of those funny games. I don't know what it is about the Berube Leafs. Like, there's been a lot of conversation about the Berube Leafs. Not all of it makes sense to me, but this is something that has come up many times this season. And if you've been watching the streams, you've seen me go through this process in real time. It'll be the first 5, 10, 15 minutes of the game, and it'll be back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And there's not necessarily that much action. Might be a scoring chance against, there might be a scoring chance for. And I think this game, the early game, featured that. And I think it's tight, and I think it's even, and I look up and the shots are like 6-1 for the other team. What is that? Are the Leafs just legitimately getting outplayed, or is it that they're satisfied allowing shots, shot attempts, certain chances from certain areas because they think they're low percentage shots? And it's the Colorado Avalanche. They have ridiculous skill, high-end skill, but they've never seen a shot that they didn't want to take. So I'm looking at that and going, all right, maybe that's why it's going this way. The rest of the period goes in similar fashion, but at the very end of the period, Jack Drury, high stick on Jake McCabe. You can't do that. And it's with less than a minute to go in the first period. So here's the pros and cons of that. The con is, even if you're like right on the cusp of scoring on the power play, the period's about to end. So your power play is going to get broken up. The good news is because you're going into intermission, it means if you need the full 2 minutes to score on this power play, you get to use your top unit the whole time. And that's exactly what they did. Luke Gazdic highlighted this on the broadcast. Marner handling the puck at the point in this weird role where there's 5 forwards on the power play and he plays the power play quarterback, and yet it makes perfect sense. Cale Makar gets pulled into the middle just enough. Mitch Marner has just enough space to get it down to Austin Matthews. Matthews tries to center it and sometimes you can't pay the puck to go in, and other times you're Austin Matthews over the last 3 games. 4 goals in 3 games.
I think he's got his swagger back.
And by swagger back, I mean, like, he still doesn't really celebrate when he scores. Like when you're texting a friend and you type LMAO in all caps and you look like you're reading a textbook. Like when you text a friend LMAO in all caps and like a bunch of skull emojis and you just look like you're reading the textbook. That's him lighting up NHL teams. He's a monster. Bit of a lucky goal, bit of a lucky bounce. Luck follows you around when you're playing well. And up to this point in the game, Matthews, Marner, Knies, who were all on the ice here with the power play unit, were playing well. They were matched up against MacKinnon and whoever his wingers were, because Bednar had to like loosen things up a little bit, get the blender out, and Makar and Taves. I think that's important to highlight because the Avalanche's center depth right now after the deadline is Nathan MacKinnon, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, Jack Drury. That's stupid. And still, even though the Avs were out shooting the Leafs, they were outshot attempting the Leafs, Bednar was unsatisfied with the offense enough that Brock Nelson got put up onto the wing with MacKinnon. We've been talking a lot recently like, all right, Berube, you got to get out the blender. You got to get some offense here, get some goals. The Leafs did a good enough job against the MacKinnon line that Bednar felt like he had to get out the blender. Now, in his defense, it worked. Well, to a degree. But we're skipping a few steps here. Because the Leafs take the lead 28 seconds into the second period. That's a good start. Seconds later, Brandon Carlo takes a tripping penalty. Here it is on the screen right now. Oh no, sorry. That's Brandon Carlo actually being tripped to the ice by one of the Avalanche 2 seconds prior. Oh, and now here's Carlo, and like it is a tripping call, but why is he on the ice? Anyone gonna ask these seemingly important questions? No. All right, well, it feels like you should. I don't know, it's just me. The Avalanche get a power play. As pointed out by Allison Lukin, this is Nathan MacKinnon, just casual backhand into the bumper at Valery Nichushkin, who buries it and said a swear word in Russian. When I did KHL highlights, I didn't learn a lot of it, but I learned enough to know the swears. And the game is tied up less than 3 minutes into the second period. Now, if you're a Leaf fan who, the Leafs just got lit up for 7 goals against the Avalanche, Nichushkin scored in that game, you might be like, man, he really has our number. No, he's just sort of really good. Producer Drew with the preposterous stat. That was the Colorado Avalanche's first regulation loss with Valery Nichushkin in the lineup since December 16th. Oh, well, he hasn't played very much. No, he hasn't played very much, but he's played enough that that's impressive. They lost 3-1 to the Canucks in a game where he scored on December 16th. Then it's win, 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 win. Hey, that's against the Leafs. Win, shootout loss against Minnesota, win, win. In those games, goal in the loss against Vancouver, goal, 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 assist, nothing. What a bum. Nothing. Again, what a bum. Goal, assist, nothing. 4 points against the Leafs, including a hat trick. Nothing, nothing, goal, a goal and assist. And he scored in this one too. They only scored once and he had it. To think that the Avalanche have rebuilt their entire goalie tandem, swapped out 3 of the 4 centers they use, and it's starting to look more and more likely heading into the playoffs that the Avalanche are gonna get Gabriel Landeskog back. Dude. Wagon! Safe to say, a win tonight means something. The Leafs have struggled mightily against opponents in the Eastern Conference who are in a playoff spot as of late. They're in a tight race with Florida. We've said it 1,000 times. You're in a tight race with Tampa. We've said it 1,000 times. There are teams behind you that are catching up. You got a great win against Calgary. A great win. You got this back-to-back here, and it starts with a playoff opponent, a strong opponent, and one that spanked you less than 2 weeks ago. You need a win here. And over the course of the second period, that win got further and further away from them. The Leafs were getting outshot into oblivion. The gap tightens, and then at some point during the second period, the Avs just pull away. Early in the third period, not again! The Leafs take yet another too many men on the ice call! Stop it! You know, I like to think that Sheldon Keefe is having a good time in New Jersey with the Devils. I like to think that he is focused on the Devils, because that's his job, and he doesn't think about the Leafs a whole heck of a bunch. But part of me thinks he notices the little things, and he's not a man of many words. And after that game, he just texted Craig Berube in all lowercase, LOL. Dude, across eras, this team takes too many men on the ice calls. Too many men on the ice calls. And it's the Avs, dude. You cannot. Your penalty kill is struggling, and it struggled against the Avalanche mightily. They had a big night the other night against Calgary. They allowed the goal earlier this game from the Avs. You're asking them to come up big. I mean that, or you're asking for like the luckiest bounce ever. Well, you know, this is the 18th season of LFR. That's a lot of seasons. I just counted. Between regular season and playoffs, I've done over 1,400 LFR videos after Leaf games. Much earlier in my career, I also edited highlight packs for the Leafs and for other teams around the league. I've covered junior games, games in the minors, games over in Europe. I don't consider myself a grizzled vet, but I do think that I have seen a thing or two. And I say all that to say this: I have never, ever in my entire hockey watching life ever seen what happened on the game-winning goal of this game. Simone Benoit clears the puck. He yeets the thing up the ice, and it's objectively funny that I don't even need to watch the replay to know that it was Simone Benoit, because he was credited with an assist. I'm here to tell you that it should be secondary. Kelly Sutherland is a ref in the NHL. He has reffed 1,591 career regular season NHL games. This, I think, was 1,592, according to scoutingtherefs.com, and another 242 Stanley Cup playoff games. He has been doing this for a very long time. The first game that he ever officiated was December 19th, 2000. 6 players who have suited up for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season, including 2 of them who played in this game, were not alive when Kelly Sutherland officiated his first NHL game. With the puck soaring through the air, this is a tough one. If you had an NHL players clearing pass and it's Simone Benoit, like, you don't know where this is going. Love Benny, but you don't. And also, like, you're not RoboCop, right? You're not wearing all that equipment. You're a ref. You're thinking, this puck might bash me in the face. And I don't want that. I like my face, actually, a little bit. Enough that I don't want to see it dented. So he ducks and dives, like, on his belly. Refs probably do that, like, more often than we realize. It never hits them. And it certainly never hits them in a way that gives the short-handed team an odd man rush. The NHL Edge goal simulator for this is surreal. Because the ref is not a dot on the screen, Simone Benoit throws this thing down the ice, it hits an invisible wall, Steven Lorenz collects the thing and rips it! Fantastic passion, fantastic celebration. Drew, put it right here. I gave you several angles to work with. Look at him. Look at how great he is. I love him. Steven Lorenz scores a game winner at Scotiabank Arena. That must never happen. You're wrong. The first game I ever brought my son to on New Year's Eve against the New York Islanders, I saw a game-winning goal. There was Steven Lorenz, a windmill deke on Alex Romanov, assisted by Ryan Reeves. That's a thing that happened. And he had a big celly then and a big celly now. The Leafs get a gift, let's be honest, and it's 2-1. And I thought one thing in that moment, and this is not in a Leafs fan's nature, That's the game-winning goal. Leaf fans are not allowed to think that about any goals, actually. And that's not a rule I made up. It's a rule that every Leaf fan made up inside their own head for themselves. You won't allow yourself to believe that anything good will ever happen, really. You won't allow yourself to believe it too much, because what if you believe and then something happens and you get hurt? Not like physically, like in the feelings, but sometimes something happens that is so wacky, something that is clearly like just ordained from the hockey gods, that you're like, oh, everything's gonna be fine. Again, it wasn't a Mona Lisa, but the Leafs, I thought their third period was their best period of the game, because they didn't just completely crawl into a shell. There were a few shifts where they got hemmed in and it wasn't great. There were a few times Joseph Woll had to make some unbelievable saves, but the Leafs brought it down the other way. They had some incredible chances. William Nylander, Austin Matthews. Matthew Knies had a gimme I couldn't believe he didn't bury. The Leafs probably had more chances in the third period than any other period in this game. Blackwood had to be like legitimately good down the stretch. And speaking of Blackwood, the Leafs made it difficult for the Avs to even pull him. Felt like the Leafs were tempting the hockey gods at the end a little bit. Marner goes for the empty net and it's an icing. Mitch. Matthews goes for the empty net and it's an icing. Austin. Knies goes for the empty net and he ices it. Matthew! Tanev has an unreal breakup of a feed to Nathan MacKinnon in the, we're like talking less than 10 seconds to go in the game. A really, really solid defensive effort that on the stats on paper is probably not going to smile on the Leafs all that much. They won. The Leafs big boys matched up against the Avs big boys and they didn't flinch. Cale Makar had like a legitimately tough game. I don't think I've ever seen him have one of those. But McCabe, like, nutmegged him. Marner broke his ankles, got him to fall down. Matthews gave him fits in the third period. Mitch did have the one play that I tweeted about at the end of the second where his stick got knocked out of his hand and then it got knocked away from him, and instead of going to get a stick or going to the bench or anything, he just sort of stood there with his arms in the air, and that led to a 30-second fire drill. I hated that. But most of the rest of the game, I thought he was legitimately good. Matthews was really, really good. And Knies, something that's developed with his game throughout this season, and you can definitely tell this season compared to last, he's a really solid defensive option. That hasn't always been the case. He doesn't look out of place on that line anywhere on the ice. Offensive zone, neutral zone, defensive zone. That's why he's up there. It's not just because he's banged in a 24-25 goals. It's because he's a 200-foot player, and I hope he's a Leaf for life. Tanev and McCabe, mwah. And Joseph Woll. This is just the night of goofy Joseph Woll stats. First and foremost, here's Joseph Woll with the game belt, because he deserved it, with Anthony Stolarz and Brandon Carlo, two legitimately huge men. From Sportsnet stats, Joseph Woll is 13-2 with a .920 save percentage this season when facing 30 or more shots on goal. Yeah, no, he had like 2 or 3 bad games in a row and he's bad. No, totally. Sorry, I'm salty about that. It's Joseph! You don't have faith in Joseph? And just as silly, the Maple Leafs as a whole team, it's not just Woll, improved to 21-6-2 this season when allowing 30 or more shots on goal. Second best record in the NHL. How is it not first? It's a really weird record to have because you have to win a lot, like the vast majority of your games, but you also have to give up a lot of shots. Man, what a huge win. This really feels like a pivotal moment in the Leaf season. Listen, they're in the middle of 7 games in 11 days. It's a lot and it's not fun. It's also the schedule and they're the games in front of you. You win or you lose. That's it. That's all. Look at the schedule. Look at it. Look at it. There is opportunity in front of you. There's a lot of games. Oh yeah, there's a lot of games. You get the Rangers in Madison Square Garden, second half of a back-to-back. That's a tough game. Then you get on the plane, take on Nashville. It's Nashville. Like, you ought to win, man. The Preds do have a winning record at home. They're also the 3rd last place team in the league. Listen, I know it's the regular season. At the end of the day, you get in and you play who you play. It's Florida. It's Tampa. It's one of the wild card teams. Who knows? Fans probably aren't going to feel good about it no matter who you play. But here you are in a 3-way tie in the Atlantic. You and the Panthers and the Lightning have 85 points each. You're there. You're right there. You can still win the division. Why not do it? I don't know. Sounds like a good idea to me. I don't know. What do you think? Questions. Right now, it's looking like a serious possibility that all Canadian teams could make the playoffs this year. How awesome would that be? Maybe my memory is bad, but when's the last time that happened? Okay, so I started working at Sportsnet their first year of the rights deal. You might remember no Canadian team made the playoffs that year. And then there was a meeting, and at the very beginning of the season meeting for the next year, so that would have been the 15-16 season, someone like very high up got on stage and was like, that will never happen again. And everyone in the room, there was like an audible, it just happened actually, and it might happen again. So it's great to see that things have turned around. All 7 is a lot. The Habs are in a spot right now. The Sens are in a spot right now. Things have to turn around in the West. The Flames are in free fall. The Canucks, they're there. They're hanging on. You gotta hope that the Blues slow down. Minnesota's gotta tumble even further. It's gonna be really tough. But all 7 Canadian teams making it into the playoffs would be some special stuff, which is hilarious because I know there's a bunch of you watching this right now going, I don't care if all of them miss except the Leafs. And like, fair. Would you say this game is a litmus test for how the Leafs can handle a very good team during the playoffs? Well, let's clear something up. They're all very good teams in the playoffs. Listen, some lines didn't do very well. The fourth line, Berube didn't like the mix because they were outchanced to oblivion. I gotta tell you, loving Max Domi's game recently, not just offensively, like he's developed a really competent, useful defensive stick. McMahon, Robertson, like they're good skaters, man. And I know Lawton's really struggled, but it's great having him in there. It's great having him as an option. Yarncroke too. You got to admit, like Tanev McCabe is obviously like the shutdown pair. Having Carlo help out Riley is, yeah, that looks way better, dude. It's pretty good. Yeah, well, they relied on your goalie. Yeah, I don't know if you've watched like every Stanley Cup playoff ever. There's some team that relies really, really heavily on their goalie, and they find ways to win anyway. You know what we're talking about right now? Because the Habs are in a playoff spot and the Capitals might win the President's Trophy. The last time those two teams played each other and the Capitals were the better team and Montreal had a goalie and won because of the goalie. Dude, the 2018 Washington Capitals, like they were down 3-2 in the conference final against Tampa, and they won because Braden Holtby decided, I'm just done allowing goals after game 5, and he got a shutout in game 6 and 7. There have been a lot of series in recent memory where it's like, all right, you're a 60, we're a 40. But goalie! And then you win because of the goalie. Ask the Avalanche how important a goalie is. They changed both of them before Christmas. There's a winning formula in there. I don't think it's perfected. I don't think there's a lot of tonight that Craig Berube loved, but it was enough. So, how'd producer Drew do? Was he good? Were you well behaved? I bet he was. For now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you liked this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Brand new Steve Dangle podcast is up on the SDPN YouTube channel, on Spotify, and on Apple. And it features an interview with John Forsland. Hey, what do you say? From Amazon Prime.